jump into the episode. So you and I originally connected through your expertise of bringing companies to Japan through your work at weConnect. We started having a little bit of a conversation, and then I just found your story so interesting. So for me, often people talk about, why did you come to Japan, blah, blah. And for me, this is like less interesting than why you stayed, right? For me, the why you came is less important than why you stayed. And we just let that go by. And why you stayed. And then as we started kind of digging deeper into your story, I just started listening that there was this incredible power that you had in terms of taking the situation as it is and then finding your own space. And Business Karaoke Podcast listeners are like you and I, foreign with an interest in Japan, or Japanese with an interest in the global market, or sometimes more than that. And I think last week's episode, or when you listen to this, probably 2 weeks episodes ago, was from Kyoko, and she talked about finding your voice, right? And then because she's a communication coach, but I think you're so important now to bring into the story, because it's also now about finding your place, right? So now you find your voice, now you've got your place. And that's why I wanted to bring you in to talk a little bit about that story, about taking where you are and absolutely, essentially using it to your advantage.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think foundationally, to sort of help your listeners, add value to your listeners, I think the most foundational realization that I had was that if I wanted to do something that I could call my own, I didn't have to be the founder, which I think is a huge realization. I think that there's a lot of, there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of fame, there's a lot of people want to be kind of, they feel like they have to be like the founder, the CEO to do their own thing. But I was a little lucky, but I was able to figure out what I like to do, which is really a commercial role where you're doing sales, marketing, business development, talking with the clients, trying to figure out what the market needs. I like to do that role. And then I was really just fortunately lucky to be working with people that could be the founder. One is Scott Smoller, the founder CEO of weConnect. Another is my wife. and both of them were founders that I was already supporting. And because they needed my skill set to start their business, I was able to be there day one and fill my role as a number two, number three, whatever you want to call it. I mean, we don't really put those kind of labels within when we discuss about these things, we don't really say those labels, but really very supportive at the very first day of the business. I was doing what I love to do to help them, make their dream into reality. And I think that realization is I think, so important. And whether it's number 2, number 14, number 30, I think if people want to do something and follow their dreams to start their own thing, to call something that they can say they partially own, completely own, they don't have to take the CEO founder role. They can do what they need to do. And I think a lot of people, in order to be happy in life, I think people sometimes when they're growing up, they're like, you get the age-old question, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a policeman. But usually the reason for that interest is more foundational. Right? If you want to be a salesman, probably you just like to talk to people and maybe like to help them, right? If you want to be someone that helps, operate things operate, maybe you just like to know how things work, and you don't necessarily love to talk to people, but you want to have intimate conversations with people you're comfortable with and work towards a goal and leave the talking to random people to the sales department. So I really think that is the realization and foundational perspective that I needed to get to where I am right now. And once I figured that out, I mean, the sky's the limit. There's no limit to what now I can do. So I think that's pretty cool.
And I mean, if that doesn't set you up to listen to this conversation, I mean, I don't know what does, right? So let's go back. And I want you to tell me about the first time that you took, let's say, your environment or situation, and you said, oh my gosh, I need a pivot here. This is not gonna.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of confusion for everyone in life when they're young, because they have parents, and those parents had parents that only had so many tools to guide you in life, and they may have had limited experiences to guide you in life. I mean, of course, they probably want the best for you, but their perspectives may not be what you exactly need to get to where you want to be. So, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, go to school, go to college, get a degree, be safe. I mean, for a lot of people, maybe that path isn't perfect for them, but because most of society kind of tells you that's what you need to do, you kind of just do it because you're following. It's just what people do. It's just how it is. And so, you know, I think the first, I guess, tingling of a question for me was in high school when my mother was like, "You need to play football, baseball, basketball," and I was like, not loving football, not loving baseball, maybe basketball. But, you know, that was a push in a direction that I didn't feel was necessarily right for me. But I did it because it just seemed like the right thing to do.
And she wanted you to do all three, not choose one. She wanted you to do all three?
Well, she wanted to do all three because we moved around a lot. So, I mean, going back even further, born in Maryland, United States, lived in Virginia, another state, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, moved around a lot, lived in different subcultures of America, which I think was helpful. You know, moving. You know, I was very shy with the ladies when I was younger, and so moving around a lot didn't help because I had to start a whole new progress of developing friends. So really, I was just at home playing sports or video games, and that was my life. I never went to parties in high school. I never did any extracurricular fun ever, ever in high school. And I was just, you know, relegated to those three things. I think looking back in hindsight, probably okay, because you know, you eventually experience those things. But you know, that kind of that time, you know, my mother wanted me to play those sports to make friends, but also her family was big in football, so she wanted me to do football. And you know, I just had a tingling. It wasn't clear. Then, as I progressed through high school, I eventually focused on basketball. I eventually got a basketball invitation to go to Yale University. I had other scholarships. So people think all basketball players in college get scholarships. In the Ivy League, you don't. You just everyone just gets financial aid. I get to college, and you know, definitely one of my, you know, core values is never quit. So I'm in college, commitment for 4 years, play basketball, you know, do the curriculum, graduate. But there was always something like, for whatever reason, I couldn't. And if any of my basketball teammates from university hear this, it's maybe the first time hearing this for them. But I was unable to go all in on basketball. I was good enough and I trained enough to add value for us to have marginally kind of successful seasons, not accomplishing our goal of going to the NCAA tournament or winning the Ivy League. We missed out on that, you know, it was a close margin, but we missed out on those. But looking back, I was just like, in my heart, I was just like, why can't I go all in on this? And eventually, I was still good enough to go play professionally. And but in deep inside me, I was like, this isn't the right role for me in life. I don't love basketball. I'm gonna play it every day, but I still made it to the pros. I was tall. I put the ball in the hoop, right? Right. So I played professionally in Europe, Africa. I got a chance in the NBA with the New York Knicks to join the preseason team and practice with them for 8 days. Came to Japan, and all throughout this experience, I'm just like, why am I not like loving this? Why am I not just like, I'm getting paid to play a game? Why am I not just absolutely loving this? And you know, eventually, where I got to was when I was playing in Japan. I was just like, I need to figure out what comes after basketball. And this is the beginning of that like role identification, the realization of what you like in life. So I realized that basketball wasn't it. I moved to Ernst & Young tax strategy in Japan, did that, learned a lot. And then I moved to another company called Tricor, where we help companies enter Japan. I was hired as an account manager. And then the moment that I was introduced to like client-facing work, that's when I felt at home. That's when I felt like I could do this every day for the next 15 years, which is what I've done. and that's when I really started to feel like at home. So it's a foundational thing. I like to do sales related work. Makes me happy. It gives me energy. Like I am definitely an extrovert. And when I talk to people afterwards, I'm like, I have more energy. Introverts like get drained, right? So I'm definitely an extrovert. But that is when I really started to realize what kind of role I could do to add value to others or organizations and also be happy. And so, yeah, that was the point. I did that at Tricor, then Tricor let me down a little bit, let our founder Scott down, let our other co-founders down. And we made weConnect 6 years and 22 days ago. So we were just in Malaysia celebrating our 6th anniversary. And honestly, I was just chatting with Scott. I was like, I can't believe this started in your apartment. Right. And then it moved to a cubicle. And now we have like 200 people all flying from around the world to go to Malaysia and celebrate 6 years of success. So I think to answer your question, it was like a gradual reveal, like pulling back the curtain 1 centimeter at a time to reveal like what actually would make me happy in this world. And then once I realized that, I was just lucky that Scott had a dream, my wife had a dream. And I often talk with other founders. I mean, there's a founder in Australia running a CFO service, and it was almost as easy as breathing to see what he needed to do to productize his business and say, because he's a CFO, he's doing project work, and he gets this client lots of work, gets this client a little bit of work, and he was being pushed and pulled in so many directions he only can take on 4 clients at once. Then I told him, why don't you just productize the most value add, simplest thing for you to do? And that's a first step. And if no one likes that, forget them. Now he has 40 clients. So for me, like the sales business, commercial, somewhat product, creation mindset is just very easy for me, makes me happy, and adds in tremendous value. So for your listeners, finding what makes you happy, figuring out how you can help others. If you can find something that overlaps both those things, you can't, I mean, really the sky can be the limit, because doing those things probably takes so little effort for you, right?
I have another thing that I want to jump into you, but I have been in Mexico too long to not dig into chisme when I hear it. So chisme is like kind of gossip, not gossip in a bad way.
Okay.
When you said that Tricor let you down, are you able to share what that looks like? And not just in terms of, tell us the gossip, but in terms of what happens when expectations don't align? Because, I doubt that someone, people don't generally wake up and say, I'm going to go out and I'm going to let these people. That's kind of not usually what happens. It's unfortunately, one of those things that there's either a disalignment with expectations or things like that.
Yep.
And maybe talk to us about what happened there, because I think that's what then was the seed for this kind of like for weConnect, right?
Absolutely. So I have to tell you kind of my perspective on this, which was really formed by Scott. Like this is really his foundational idea that I've really taken to heart about expectation management. Because in professional services, expectation management is important. You sign a contract that says something and you do something else, the client is unhappy, right? But this can apply to marriages. This can apply to relationships, apply to anything. So if you set the expectations too high and you don't reach them, what happens? Disappointment. If you set the expectations pretty, fairly, you walk a fine line. If you set the expectations low and something more than this happens, what happens? Appreciation. What's happening? Wow, we've overachieved, right? It's kind of like under promise, over deliver, that old adage, right? So what Tricor did wrong was they had Scott, myself, other weConnect co-founders on PowerPoints, because in 2017, I think it was, Tricor Global got bought by private equity from London called Primera. Primera, they buy a lot of assets around the world and they make them better and sell them. That's what private equity typically does. And they bought Tricor. They were really, really excited about the opportunity with Tricor, because that business is really a cash cow. I mean, it's like an annuity. You don't fire your accountant every day, right? You don't fire your payroll provider every day. It's so sticky, right? So once you get a client and you do well, even forever, right? So they're really excited. But they did a kind of a global roadshow. They met myself and Scott and others, and they were very impressed with how we were running Japan, all of our responsibilities. Scott with the operations, and he was basically running all the Tricor. I was running the commercial side of things. We did presentations to Primera, and they were like, "This is great. This is a great structure. We could probably apply this to all the Tricor offices around the world." So they were really excited about what we could bring to the table. They were having board meetings, they were putting us in PowerPoints, and they had me as like head of North Asia for commercial, and that was exciting. Expectation set, right? And then over 6 months, they hired new global management. Those people, for whatever reason, weren't as excited about, promoting us to higher roles in Asia. And then it just died. And that expectation and letdown, disappointment happened for Scott, me, everybody. And at that moment, it was like the motivation to continue was just like so little. And yeah, I mean, early in 2018, Scott was just like, what do you think? And to be honest, I was doing Arigato Japan with my wife. So I was just like, at this point, because things are so uncertain, I'm going to really consider going full-time with my wife and build that business. But, over the course of the next 6 months, as Scott left Tricor and made weConnect, we were able to reconnect and align on me filling the role I like to fill and in what he needed to bring money and business and clients to weConnect. And so we were able to align on, what I would like to be motivated. And I was very motivated. And we were hustling day and night for the first two years just to get to profitability. Now we're 6 years in and it's all good. Yeah. But that's what Tricor did. They set the expectation too high. They mismanaged expectations. And I mean, really, they lost, this is biased, but they lost pretty good talent that could have helped them maybe exit for more multiples. And I put a lot of money. I invested money in Tricor.
Personally,
because I wanted to get the exit, right? And so we kind of started weConnect, and we had already put money in Tricor. So we were like starting with like fumes.
Yeah.
But it wasn't so much that, it was just like, we now have the chance to control our destiny.
Yes.
And that was exciting and terrifying.
Yes.
Especially at the time I had a new baby boy. And he was like 6 months old. So, but for whatever reason, we weren't super concerned because we knew the business so well. It was a domain we were familiar with. I think when people move domains and try to do something brand new, it's definitely a lot of growing pains, there's a lot of potholes. In this case, we were very familiar.
Yes. So when you have a little baby boy, like I also do, there's a thing, like when you're with your wife or your husband, that the two of you, if you need to, can share a single bed or sleep on the floor in a futon, and you kind of be okay. But when you have a child, you have this kind of, you don't want that for them, right? So there's honestly something that just changes inside of you. One thing that I'd love for you to share more of your thoughts on is, you said one of your personal mottos is never quit, right? Yeah. Never quit. However, you do seem to have a compass or a filter or something, like call it what you will, that you know when it's time to jump ship, right? So whether it was moving from basketball to corporate or moving from Tricor to starting weConnect with your co-founder Scott. So it's not necessarily quitting, it's maybe an evolution or a pivot or whatever you think. What are some of the things? I mean, obviously you mentioned there was a specific example with Tricor that, you had this like extreme letdown, but maybe even if you think back to like basketball or even in other things, when's a good time to jump ship? When do you look around and you say, yeah, this is no longer quitting, this is now definitely the next right thing to do?
I think the answer to this question is a spectrum, right? Because there can be people that are doing something that they're kind of okay with, maybe they're somewhat happy with. And so like they have 90% of that cup full, but maybe if they changed, they could be a full 100, but it's not enough pain to jump ship. It's not enough frustration, it's not enough letdown, it's not unfulfillment. So I think, you kind of have to get to some depth of unfulfillment. Ideally, there could be a guide or something. Maybe that's your intuition, depending on religious beliefs and spiritual beliefs. Maybe that's some kind of, special voice or guide or something. But I think in reality, because we're only human and we have hopes and fears and everything balances, I think you have to have some depth of unfulfillment and let's call it like 50, like below 50%. I think you have to have some depth of unfulfillment, and everyone's different. That depth is different for everybody. But, the depth of unfulfillment needs to be met, some threshold needs to be met. I think that's kind of what, I think that's, at least in my experience, that's what I experienced. So there was a depth of unfulfillment with professional basketball. I felt it. I needed to figure out what's next. This is depth of unfulfillment at Tricor. I felt it. I moved on. Now I think if people are feeling it and they're still worried about making this jump ship, you got to talk to people that you trust to see what they think, because it can be terrifying.
Interesting that you kind of refer to it as a guide. Where did you develop the trust in your own compass? Like when you said you feel it, I speak to a lot of people and hear different things, and especially some women that are either in transitional periods, maybe they're about to have a baby, just had a baby, moving back to the workforce or whatever. They have kind of this feeling, but I don't know. But I think people do know. I just don't know if that they kind of trust that feeling. Is there anything about, have you always had this trust in your own compass? Was it something that you were encouraged to do?
I look back, the first time I would have felt this compass was when I decided on which college I was going to go to. Because when I was in high school, my mother was, very encouraging that I would get a basketball scholarship, pay for everything. And that, I got letters from Davidson. I could have played with Steph Curry at Davidson. I got letters from USC, Clemson, Marist, Hawaii, a lot of colleges. I mean, I'm 6'11" and I could do something on the court. So there was interest. And so at that time, I hadn't felt the compass yet because I was still too confused. I had verbally committed to a college in South Carolina called Furman, and I was gonna go. but my Uncle Brian, and I'll make sure he watches this because I'm giving him credit. My Uncle Brian messaged me and said, "Hey, my colleague Glenn Whitpen," send this one to Glenn, Uncle Brian, because he was part of this too. We can kind of, under the guise of a guys trip, Grandpa, me and you are going to do a guys trip to the Army game, the Army football game. But after the game, we're going to drive to Yale, and because Coach Jones has shown a lot of interest in you, and I think that you really should reconsider Yale because it may be helpful for your future. So my mother doesn't know any of this. She knows everything now, so it's okay.
It's not news for mom now.
Yeah. But I do this guys trip. We go to, we have a couple days in New York City, a little Chinatown action, go to the, Army football game, which is a big American thing. And then we drive to Yale. I see Yale, and it was just so impressive. And I was just like, I just felt like I come here. And that was probably the first time I felt that compass personally. And so where did it develop? I'd like to think we all have it. So I think we all need to just have the courage to listen. I think we all have it. I think that sometimes people feel so stuck or so trapped that despite the alarm bells ringing, they don't want to move. So I think we all just have to have the courage to listen. I think we all have it.
Tell me about what is the power of a great number two? So for example, when you have the founder or the person with the idea, right? Sometimes that they are often kind of glorified with, oh, you're the one like with the idea. But at the same time, and we see this a lot, especially in design thinking, if an idea just stays an idea, I mean, it's worth nothing. It's worth nothing. So, we have a lot of emphasis on rapid prototyping and iteration, which is not that kind of get it done and perfect. It's the idea that, you go in and iterate as you can, which is a very maybe foreign concept in Japan. The idea, there's an idea of Kaizen, which is a little bit different to iteration. Because Kaizen is the idea that we just make whatever it is better, but iteration is like, maybe we go back and change the thing, right? Whereas in Japan, it's like Kaizen, you don't change the thing, you just make the thing better, even if that thing is shit or not working. So I'd love to hear but especially because I, you know, we have lots of listeners that aren't necessarily business owners. What is there, or what's a way that they can bring that kind of like their uniqueness or their value to the business in a way that's not necessarily like the founder stamp? Because honestly, from sitting in the founder chair, it sucks sometimes. It's like really not always the most. It's really not always that fun. So talk to us a little bit about how that number two can, you know, be just as important as that original idea.
Yeah. So, you know, for your listeners, you know, what they may not be in number two, they may be number 3, number 15, right? So this applies down the line. I think the closer you are to the founder, the more impact you have to have. And I think the most general statement, and I talked about this with Scott the other day, because he's really into this. The most general statement that applies to this question is you have to be able to scale the unscalable. So like when you build a business and you get to a point where things can be repeated in a standard operating procedure, then you can hire people that, you know, are going to fill a role and do those things in the way that you've designed, right? But the closer you are to the founder, you have to fly the plane and build it at the same time. So if you have skills where you can, you know, build something and act like it's built while still promising the client the ends are going to justify the means, it's going to be great. You know, that you have to be able to live in that uncomfortable, you know, situation a little bit when you're closer to the founder, because when you're a founder, there's nothing. There's just an idea, right? And then you have to execute.
Yeah.
So scaling the unscalable, for example, right now, Scott has, you know, at weConnect, we've kind of co-founded this other global payroll platform called Breeze. You know, he is a co-founder of Breeze. There's a technical co-founder, Omar. You know, it's definitely their baby. But again, I'm feeling kind of like some kind of number 2, number 3, number 4, some kind of like, sorry,
magnetism, like something connected, like pulling you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm filling a role for them where we're, you know, Scott has a lot of perspective on global payroll, one of the best minds in the world on this subject, and what's possible, what's not, and where the, you know, issues are, and where things can be improved. But as we're learning, and this is the first time I've ever really helped build a software, you know, basically, you know, and I was talking to Omar just down in Malaysia, and he's like, a lot of software companies, they'll have an idea, build it, and then go to the client and be like, what do you think? And maybe that's 6 months, a year, 2 years. And then if the client's like, I hate it. Well, okay. Great. So where I'm adding value, I think right now with Breeze is I'm able to tightrope walk reality and the dream and set expectations in such a precise way that when the client says, I want this, and signs a contract, by the time it's implemented, it's basically 100% there. And so this I'm sort of like a air traffic controller between market feedback going to Scott and Omar and the rest of the engineering team and saying, this is what the market's saying. So this is probably this is what the market's saying. And then really Scott and Omar decide what to prioritize. But that's like scaling unscalable. So I have to sell something that's half an idea, half reality, and make sure that, you know, our direction is set on a course that once it is implemented with the client, 100% is there. So that's scaling unscalable. You can't just give that to some random salesperson and say, sell this. It's half doesn't exist, right? So you know, there are features in the future that are going to be amazing, and we know what the market now needs, but they don't exist yet. But I still have to go out there and say, this feature is available in the future. How do you feel? And really describe it, sell the dream, get the feedback, and then go tell the team what to build. So that's scaling unscalable. If you can do things, if you can live in like a situation of uncertainty, the closer you can be to a founder to add value. The further the more you need a comfortable, clear job description, the further away from the founder you'll be.
This is so interesting. I had never thought about it like that. Because when you're a founder, everything is new. You're used to everything being your responsibility. You're used to everything not existing. And it's just the day-to-day. So you don't really worry about it too much. But interestingly, if you work with someone that's not necessarily wants to be a founder, right? Let's just say like they could. Let's say they don't want it, which means you have this person that has this incredible skill set, actually doesn't want the stress and the risk of all the founder stuff.
I don't want to be the CEO. Like you listen to you.
You have all that, but you actually still kind of have like your skin in the game in terms of, because you actually have to go and take like the found vision, you know, because you as you kind of mentioned, like that traffic control. What are some things that you do maybe tactically or tangibly that you have to then maybe, you know, connect and coordinate? Maybe you can also talk about how important you feel that personal connection is. Like, can you, you know, that kind of like number two person, do you need to have that connection? So talk to us about the relationship, and then I'd love to hear about what are some things that you then do to then take that person's vision and then sell it onto a client. How do you help them see something that you're actually not even seeing?
Yeah. So in terms of the relationship, I mean, it goes without saying, but trust is like so important. Trust and communication. It's just like anything Scott's, and because back to expectation management, anything Scott says he's going to do, I know he's going to do it with like the utmost professionalism and near perfectionism possible. I'm not even worried. It's like, oh, you're okay. Yeah, he's going to do it. It's going to be of a world-class level. I'm not even concerned. And I feel like for my role, I feel like he's completely confident in my abilities to deliver what I say. So that trust is helpful because there's no wasted energy on worry. You know, we know that there are going to be bumps in the road, and as long as we communicate immediately and adjust course, it's all good. Like it's not even a problem. It's like actually good. Oh, there's an issue. Great. Let's understand this and never do it again. Right. So that relationship is very, very, very helpful. I can't say if it's necessary, but I'd say it's close to necessary to be happy doing things you love with people you love and building something new. So I say that's necessary. In terms of like the tactical things, you know, I really try really hard, and you know, I really try really hard to improve my communication completely. So one of the things that we're doing now for Breeze is, you know, when I have conversations with the market, you know, we have features that exist, features that are in development, and then wish list. And I've just tried to create little, you know, market insight cards. It's basically just a big Excel sheet, and try to boil it down to only the thing that matters. So it's just like feature number one, interested, not interested. Feature number two, interested, not interested, why? See keynotes below. So in this much space, they can get a complete understanding of what that client sees, is interested in, is not interested in. It's just communication. That's a tactical thing. Like improving communication, making communications clear. If you communicate and they have tons of questions and you go back and it's back and forth, you've wasted so much time. So the tactical thing is making communication so clear and so helpful. Has to happen once.
And the reason I bring up the personal connection is because the other kind of business that you're very active in is with your wife.
Yeah. Wow. What a that is a whole nother animal.
Let's chat about that as well. I also work with my husband.
Yeah.
And we have, I would say, almost polar opposite skills.
Okay.
So he is machine learning, AI, like logic.
Cool.
Again, nothing that's kind of in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So when we're collaborating, talking, working together, there's a lot of kind of like back and forth because you're wearing multiple hats, right? Mm-hmm. You're the wife but also the business owner. Then this is your husband, but then he's also a very important stakeholder in the business. He's, you know, input is really important, especially because it's so different to mine, you know? And so that's how we kind of build that 360 business. What about, how does that relationship, how is it different? Mm-hmm. How is it similar?
Mm-hmm. So it's quite interesting because I get to see my relationship flipped on its head a little bit. So at weConnect, Scott is the founder CEO, and I'm really supporting him. But there's an incredible trust, and we really like to hang out with each other, so it's very nice. At Arigato, my wife is the founder, and I'm a supporting role, but that we also have a partner, Lauren, that's more like me at weConnect, right? So she's sort of really supporting my wife day to day. You know, she is like so necessary. It's incredible, and so, but she's in the role I'm at. I'm in with Scott, so I get to see kind of like how my wife, you know, thinks about the relationship with Lauren and how we communicate internally. And I'm always like, well, that must be on Scott then. But yeah, but so there's similarities. But I'd say, and I'd love to hear your side of this. But when you got to, you know, going into business with your wife, that it's almost impossible. I would say it's almost impossible to do it perfectly. I mean, no one's perfect, but like there's moments where there's actually no right answer. There's only wrong answers. So an example is, you know, my wife made a commitment to love and hold her dearly for the rest of our lives. And, you know, that comes with certain expectations from the wife. Right. So I have to almost, I don't know if almost or absolutely unconditionally support her in some, so I'm a very I approach this situation very logically, you know, a little bit more emotion here. It's cool. But sometimes the situation happens with Arigato that requires me to have a husband perspective and a professional what's good for the business perspective. And they just, it's water and oil, water and vinegar. They can't mix. And because in a good business, sometimes you have to tell your business partners when something's wrong. And sometimes, you know, my wife, she may have a thought, it may not be the best for the business, or at least I believe that, and we'll talk about it. But that is a moment of friction because, you know, in part of her brain, she's like, why aren't you supporting me? And I'm like, I am over here in the husband. Take it off. Arigato, CFO. so, and we've talked about this, so I'm sure she'd be very fine with me sharing this. But you know, it's been at times it's been a challenge because there have been moments where I have to be a husband and a business leader, and they don't mix. What do you do? Right? It's very hard. I don't know if you had similar experiences.
Oh no, never.
Teach me.
No. Yes, all the time. And I think also, if I remember correctly, your wife was originally born in the Philippines.
Yeah, she's Filipino.
So I think we also have that as well. So my husband, I'm Australian originally. My husband is Mexican. We have not only cultural differences. So for example, like you and I would have cultural differences. I'm Australian, you're American, but somehow we speak English. So we wouldn't necessarily have the language thing. So when you're working, you know, with your spouse, you have cultural, language, and then like logical differences. It is a cocktail for amazing things, but it's also a cocktail for disaster.
Yes.
As I think that you hit it on the head with everything is a wrong answer. I think that is really the case sometimes. But what I have found helpful when everything being the wrong answer is identifying options with different hats. So my husband will say, this is my husband answer. This.
You start using this.
my CFO answer is this, right? So I mean, it's also a challenge for him, right? It's not just like a challenge for me, but it's also a challenge for him. So he's also thinking, what's the bridge here? What's the bridge between the husband answer and what's the bridge between the, you know, this like the CFO answer? And I think maybe even talking about that together is helpful.
Well, the first step for us was just finally making it clear that both of these hats existed.
Yes.
Because I think before we communicated that or identified that, it was just together, which was hard. But I like this. Let's have two conversations and like, hey, we're gonna have two conversations now.
Yeah. So yeah, but to like clearly, and this is a little bit of a thing that we do in design thinking, and because we do divergence and then convergence. So divergence being put all the options on the table, and you obviously being, you know, you might have not only an opinion as like a husband and as a business owner. Maybe you have a personal opinion, like, you as Matthew, just as like, what, but personally, I also think this. So like to put a couple options on the table and name them. And then, look at like the patterns. I found that. So to like diverge first and then converge together. I have found that helpful. Still, we only have wrong answers on the table. Still, but at least wrong answers, there's an empathy on both sides for, okay, she gets it. Because I mean, obviously your wife is also, her as a person, she's, her as a business owner. I'm going to put it all on the table, all the options, and then converge together. I have found that to be helpful in very difficult conversations.
Good. I'm going to do that. Thanks.
No, that's again, not, I mean, and this is one of the reasons why I think the Business Career Podcast is so fun, because it's people like us that, I mean, there's not many playbooks. Like, where can you go? Who can you call up and be like, I know someone who, kind of grew up like me, was like professional basketball, came to Japan, started a couple of businesses, has a family, is kind of doing their best. Who can you call? Like,
I think I may be the only one.
Yes. Like, there's no one to kind of call. And that's why I really like the Business Career Podcast, because there's all these different kinds of people that are, have one thing in common, which is we're these kind of like, intersectional people with different experiences, just sharing kind of, what it is that we learn. And why I found your story particularly interesting. What's some things for you, let's say maybe on the horizon, that you're really excited about in terms of like your business, both from the Arigato Travel side, but also at weConnect? What are some things that you both all your hats, what are you looking forward to?
So for weConnect, I definitely feel like we have a pretty clear direction about what we need to do. I mean, we're offering solutions in 90 plus countries now. So how do we offer solutions in 90 plus countries where the client has a great experience? There are no headaches for our team. Everyone's happy. When we recruit people to join our team, we tell them their happiness is really important. And that's so true. At previous firms, the employee's happiness was not number one. And we felt like when we started weConnect, we're like, that's kind of, shouldn't that be the number one? Because if they're happy, then the clients will be happy, right? And the shareholders of this will be happy. So I think the direction for how to scale weConnect in terms of how to deliver empty setup and back office and compliance solutions in 90 countries, that's pretty clear now. I mean, we have what we can do in-house well, which is accounting and bank management. And then we have partners or our own staff in every country that does payroll, tax, corporate secretarial, maybe HR advisory, labor law, immigration. So that partnership has been really massaged over the last couple of years, and we think that we're in a great balance to scale and have everyone happy. So that's cool. What I'm looking forward to as we move forward with that business is continuing to empower my team and continuing to build frameworks for them to be successful doing what I did before them. And really, I don't know the exact metrics or data, but I've heard that when you go from 0 to $1 million of revenue, you need X. And then when you go from 1 million to 10 million, you need Y. And then to go even further, you need standard operating procedures, because you have to be able to, trust that people that you've never met are going to do their job. And we're kind of there for weConnect. We're big enough where people that I've never met are doing jobs and making the company money. So standard operating procedures is kind of where I am with weConnect, in my commercial team, but also in the operations team, implementation team. So we sell, we implement, which is like building the foundation of a house, which most firms in our industry do not do. They just go right to operations and it just like takes on a life of its own. We implement a structure so that everyone's on the same page. Beautiful services going forward, no headaches, right? No mismanaged expectations. So just creating more and more processes to sell at a scale is what I'm excited for weConnect. For Arigato, we are weeks away from being awarded a type 2 travel agency license in Japan. So we'll be able to do A to Z itineraries, fully book everything, fully control the money, we take on all the liability, all that stuff. We'll be able to do that very, very soon. Until now, it's really just been food tours across the country, because you can do that without a license. But now we're going to do, really, really cool itineraries. And the opportunity in Japan is, and it goes back to something we learned early on with Arigato. When someone comes here, an amazing, experience, maybe once in a lifetime trip. Sometimes people feel that they absolutely need a Japanese guide to have the most authentic experience in Japan. But not every guide can speak perfect English. Every Japanese person can't speak perfect English. And also, they can't relate to a foreigner's perspective. They only see Japan's perspective. So they can't even identify everything a foreigner would be like, wow. It just may be like an everyday thing for a Japanese person, but a foreigner is just like, oh my God, this toilet is amazing, whatever, right? And so, I think for Arigato, because we're able to have such an incredible foreign perspective on how to appreciate Japan, really led by Anne, my wife, and Lauren, our co-owner, we've been able to secure deals with things like with brands like Lonely Planet. So Lonely Planet is a very, very famous travel book platform, information portal for travel. They acquired a global travel agency platform 2 years ago, and we are now their basically exclusive partner for Japan. And people that go to Lonely Planet, they want a great experience. So we've been entrusted with their staff, and that's going to really kick off in June when we get this license. And that's huge. So I'm really excited about how to develop that, but it really comes down to SOPs, right?
What's an SOP?
Standard operating procedure. Yeah, sorry. And so in order to scale something that for every client is completely different, how do you do that? So that's what we're working on right now. And Lauren and Anna are really leading that. I'm supporting to make sure our financials can scale and all that stuff. And then, Breeze is something I'm very excited about because we have the potential to become the most helpful and cost-effective payroll solution for the whole world, beating companies like ADP, CloudPay, Safeguard World, ActiveCampaign. We really are excited to be able to help the world manage their payroll globally in a very easy and cost-effective way. So we're on that journey right now. We're for weConnect, we're moving offices in Shibuya. This has been quite a milestone. We're moving into our own floor in a brand new Shibuya building, and we had 3 design firm meetings yesterday, and one of them was just so good, and we were just like, it's so exciting. But that office is going to be weConnect and a company, a school called the Innovation Fellowship. This is a school that our Scott, the founder of weConnect, is doing. And I mean, I help whenever I can, but really it's his baby, and we're doing that. So creating a space where there is a professional service firm that helps companies manage their back office, and 14-year-olds coming to do high school. We already have 6 or 5 students in our office now in Shibuya. It's already happening. And next year, I think Scott will have 10. So we're going to be in an environment that's incredibly unique. There's going to be a innovation focused high school where they do standard, high school curriculum in the morning, work on a passion project to be prepared for life and go a route of passion, right? So you probably have Scott, but this high school is pretty cool because it's going to be in the same office as we can. So parents and students will come up the elevator, go into their school, and then the door on the left is weConnect. So I'm really looking forward to that.
What's the thinking behind the school?
So this is
it's an actual school. It's like a program.
If you don't go to ASIJ, you can come to our school. Yeah. So, well, again, I mean, I technically small ownership of the school, but it's really the Scott's project. I'm not doing anything. But really, this is me speaking vicariously for Scott. These are not my words, but he's had a big passion for education for a long time now. And if I get the story correctly, I mean, his kids go to the Montessori school over here, and they don't have a high school. And so he was like looking out in the future for his children, and he was like, he said, yeah, I don't know. But him himself, because he also found, his happy place being the founder of multiple businesses now. He wanted to create a high school that really nurtured children, nurtured their true passions in life and help validate or invalidate them. So kids come, they say, I love AI. So he works with them in the afternoon to determine what the most makes sense first step to validating or invalidating that thought. And that's what they do in the afternoon. So who knows what could happen with that? I mean, the school could become like the next Y Combinator, because these, I mean, it's a very selective school. If you're a kid that wants to do sports, not for you, right? At this point, maybe in the future. But this school is pretty cool because these kids are a little more mature for their age. They have something that they want to, you know, explore and pursue in life that's beyond the standard curriculum. But you still have to do the standard curriculum in case you need to get into college. So they do Khan Academy, which is an online learning platform. So they'll check all the boxes to get into any college and get all the, you know, past SAT or ACT or whatever it is. But it's a cool project, really cool.
That's a lot to think about, and I think I need to like also like reflect on that and have lots of thoughts and ideas I'd love to connect and share with you guys on that. One thing that's really kind of resonating with me listening to you is what an incredible ambassador you are. And for those that you believe in, whether it's your wife through Arigato Travel, or whether it's what you're doing with Scott at weConnect. And I think that this ability to be able to stand up and speak for someone, when you're speaking well about somebody else, it also kind of like reflects back on you, because people go, oh, you know, I met Matthew, he's a great guy, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of felt that's, even though, you know, I often wear the founder hat, one thing that for me that connects kind of better, I guess, in a way, is like I'm a facilitator in, you know, and I lead discussions. So for example, when we do our design thinking workshops, I'm not the one with the ideas. I'm not the one, you know, I'm not the subject matter expert. I'm the one that holds the space for those that can do the things that need to be done. And there's no space that I love more than holding space for somebody else. Like celebrating someone else has always just connected with me a little bit more. I guess it's kind of a little bit there's those kind of people. There are some people that, you know, are super excited about their birthday, and then there are, you know, and they want to have the party. And then there are other people that are really excited to go to someone's birthday and celebrate them. I'm kind of more that, I guess, second person. Maybe we can kind of like wrap up today, because I've, you know, listening to your story and then understanding that, you know, being able to not necessarily quit but evolve has been really important. But then also I think this ability to kind of be that ambassador, that kind of really positive spokesperson for someone, I think is also an incredible skill. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that is in some people, but not everyone. I find, you know, that also plays into why I like my role in the commercial sales and marketing aspect, you know, communicating to the market. Because when I meet someone, just like when I met you, I can really feel your passion for what you're doing. And that's you know, it really energizes me. It really pumps me up. And so I don't know if everyone can do that, but I think for me, I just have this natural curiosity for why someone is so excited about something. Why are you so excited? Tell me, right? And you know, I get to do this at weConnect a lot because we meet clients that have gotten to the point where they want to expand to another country. So they must be doing something pretty cool to be able to do that. And then I get to talk to CEOs, founders of those companies. And the first 30 minutes, we're not even like talking about weekend. We're just like, what are you doing? Tell me about your business. And they get really excited. And normally, sometimes, but when they're really excited, I find it's very natural for me to latch onto that and to celebrate them in the moment to others. You know, I don't know if this is true, but I like to think it is. When I became the height I am today as a 15-year-old, you know, I'm 6'11", 211 centimeters. I was that tall in 10th grade, right? And I got a lot of attention. And when you're that young, you don't know how to handle it so much. But because I've gotten like just constant a constant inundation of attention every day of my life for basically since I was 15, I'm good. Like, I don't need any more, right? And so I think that I think a lot of people, especially with social media, they're reaching out, they're doing things to get attention. It may not be through the most healthy, means or what, that's a whole other thing. But I think for me, because I've gotten so much attention for being tall, which basically is not like just luck. I didn't do anything. Right. My parents were tall and they, had sex at the right time. Right. And so I became tall, get all this attention. Do I deserve it? I don't know. Maybe because maybe people just like looking at how tall I am. But I'm good. So I like to just celebrate others. Like, I don't even like to celebrate my birthday. Who knows why that is. But I do love when my wife does surprise birthday parties secretly, but I don't like to ask for it.
Secrets of practice.
Yeah. But I think that's a big part of it, honestly. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Matthew. I think also it's been incredibly eye-opening for me, and I've also learned a lot today, Ian, just how powerful that spokesperson for your business is when it's not you as the founder. Because it's interesting because, I've never met your wife and I've never met Scott, but because, it's like, oh, and this kind of like the thinking, and this must happen a lot, is, oh, if they've convinced Matthew to believe in their vision, and this is the guy in front of me, and he's telling me about weConnect, or he's telling me about Arigato Travel, then it must be okay, right? So you play this incredible kind of role that, really does open up so many more connections, to that founder that you're supporting, because, you're kind of like their double in terms of like their, in terms of trust. And, you and I are building businesses in Japan, and it is not a joke when people say that Japan is like relationship based or, it's trust based. It's not just a thing you read in the textbooks. It's not just the thing that happened during the samurai period. It is so true today, so deeply true. That, even lots of your business processes are all founded on the fact that people trust you, whether it's, your relationships with SMBC or, whoever it might be, there's a lot going on. So let's wrap up maybe like with one final thought. Let's say someone is in a position like you that they're thinking, okay, I'm kind of the number two. What's one thing, we mentioned about communication. What's one other thing maybe that comes to mind that you think that they could do to maybe not, they're not necessarily the founder, they're whatever it is their role in the business, and they're looking for, maybe I want to stretch a little bit. I want to just maybe push a little bit more. I want to see if some things new. What's something that you would kind of wrap up and say, you know what, if there's one thing that if you're listening to this and you've got some time in the afternoon, this is something that I would try.
Yeah, I'll go one step further. I would say to get to that position, and if you don't know if you're a number 2 or a number 50, you should go work for someone that really inspires you. That then you're in the position to ask this question, right? And I think what you should do is you should go to the people that are the most influential in the business that, that can give you feedback. You should say, how can I help you more? You need to ask for it, because as businesses are being built, everyone's in their own lives, everyone's busy. So, they may see you as an influential person, but they may have you in a box, right? You have to go and say, I want to do more. I'm interested in this. And if you don't, you just really have to realize everyone's in their own world, right? And so if you don't make it clear, don't raise your hand and say, how can I do more? And what can I do? How would you like me to talk about you? How would you like me? Would you like me to talk to someone about you if you're not in the room? I think these are things you can do to really widen your opportunity.
Thank you, Matthew. I will add all the places that you can connect with Matthew and also about weConnect and Arigato Travel in the show notes. Matthew, welcome back. You are welcome back to the Business Karaoke Podcast whenever you like. Consider yourself a good friend.
Thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure.
And